Well, hello, beautiful people. Today we're going to talk about my top 10 favorite horror books of all time. And I'm going to share with you a ghost story of my own and how I didn't know that I was haunted as a child until I was 43 years old. Let's get into it. If you have been on my channel for any length of time, you will know my favorite horror book of all time is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I absolutely adored this book. This follows a group of stay-at-home moms in the 90s. They gathered together, I believe on a monthly basis, to talk about true crime books. They have a true crime book club. How delightful is that? Until a vampire, maybe a vampire, moves into the neighborhood and kind of infiltrates his way into these women's lives, and they are the only people who will stop him. What I adore about this book is that it really digs deeply into some serious topics. It explores racism in here, where a bunch of Black children go missing and no one seems to care. No one seems really eager to go and find these children, including law enforcement. This also explores feminism and misogyny and how misogyny was still rearing its ugly head even in the 90s. Grady Hendrix actually wrote this book with his mom and her friends as inspiration. He wanted to write a book about them becoming the heroines of their own story. And so we find a group of women who were stay-at-home moms and very much stuck in that role. Their husbands are useless, okay? They are useless. They are annoying, all of them. I really disliked them all. And we find these women kind of trapped at home. And through the course of this book, you find them gripping and clawing to get back their power. I think one of my favorite things about Grady Hendrix is that there's always a lot of humor in his stories. I mean, yes, you're going to be scared reading this, but you're also going to laugh a ton. He is having fun while he's writing this, and I just had the best time. But don't get it twisted. You are going to be scared, and there are scenes in this book that stay with you forever. Rats? I'll never get that image out of my mind. Next up is The Watchers by A.M. Shine. This is a book that I read this year, and it quickly shot up into some of my favorite horror, definitely of the year. You'll probably see this on my favorites at the end of the year. The Watchers follows a woman named Mina. She is transporting a parrot. She's bringing a parrot to its new home in somewhere in Ireland. Basically, in the middle of nowhere in Ireland, and her car breaks down and she has no choice but to get out because no one's coming to help her. So she gets out, she gets the parrot out, and she starts walking through the woods, and she sees far in the distance a kind of bunker-like building, and there's a woman out there screaming at her to get inside. Once she gets inside, it's pretty dark out. They lock the doors, and then they know that something is out there. There are creatures watching them. And it is about this group of people, along with Mina, trying to survive and also escape. This is inspired by Irish folklore. And if you know anything about me, I love everything Irish. Like, I just adore the writing style. I think the Irish are probably the best writers in the world, in my opinion. I just love them so much. And it's such an engrossing story. You are at the edge of your seat the entire time that you're reading this story. You want Mina to escape, but you're also like sorting through all of the dynamics between these survivors, these people stuck in this room together. Each of them are quite different from one another. Nobody's quite alike. And so you're dealing with a lot of personalities. Some are bigger personalities than the others. And the ending is kind of open-ended and suggests that there might be a sequel. And I, for one, would be like first in line to read the sequel if it does come out. Next is Come Closer by Sara Gran. This is a possession story, and we follow Amanda as she either slips into madness or becomes possessed. What I loved about this book is that it happens, based on this story, very subtly. Suddenly you have a third voice in your head talking to you. You know how you have two voices? Now there's a third. But it happens suddenly. And then there's like a strange knocking in your home that could be the pipes or could be a demonic force. I found that the most unsettling thing, I think, that how it can happen to someone in the story. It was terrifying. And it makes you go, my goodness, if it could happen to her, it could happen to me. And I just loved it. You watch her kind of spiral into madness because it starts subtly, but it doesn't end subtly. Let me just say that. Next is The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates. This is a ghost story. Darcy Coates is like the queen of ghost stories, if you don't know already. So this follows Adrian, and she is given a house after a relative passes away. She is given a house and she feels so lucky that she's gotten this house because she was at the end of her rope. She didn't have anywhere to go. So she packs up her cat and she goes to Ashburn House and moves in. And soon upon moving in, she finds all sorts of things around the house that are creepy. First of all, there are no mirrors in the house, not a one. And there are all of these things carved into desks and tables that says, like, don't forget to light the candle. And you soon discover why she needs to light a candle and why there are no mirrors. And that is because there is a horrible ghost living on the lands of Ashburn House. And it just wants to get anyone who lives in Ashburn House. It's terrifying. I really enjoyed about this book, well, how terrifying it was. I also really liked that it's a haunted house story about a girl who has nowhere else to go. Because I don't know about you, but with haunted house stories, I'm like, just leave. Why can't you leave? And I really like it when there's a good reason why people are stuck. It's either this or living on the streets. And that might make you stay in a haunted house. And I've got to say, the ghost in this book is the most terrifying ghost that I have like encountered in a book. This ghost, I don't know why I think a lot of the time ghosts are kind of like just more eerie than anything else. This ghost is like fast and just angry and clutching and just terrifying. Go and read this book. Bird Box is next by Josh Malerman. Yes, this was made into a movie on Netflix. The book was absolutely better, in my opinion. This follows a woman named Mallory. When we first meet her, she has just found out she was pregnant, doesn't even know she wants to keep the child, but her pregnancy coincides with practically the end of the world. People are seeing things, and as soon as they see these things, they kill themselves. They might kill other people in the midst of it. But basically, as you can imagine, the world is chaos at this point. Complete and utter chaos. We follow her then. And then we follow her few years later when she is trying to take her kids and leave the house that was their like safe haven for a while. She has heard that there is an actual safe haven with lots of other people that she can go to, but she has to get into a little boat and go down a river to get to it, blindfolded. Sometimes when you read a premise of a book, you're like, this is gonna be amazing, and then it falls flat. And then other times you read a premise of a book, it's gonna sound amazing, and it actually is fantastic. That is Bird Box. The premise, it lives up to that premise, which is such a relief. I hate it when that happens, when you're so excited about a book and then it just, lets you down. The thing that I think I love most about this book is those vivid imagery that you see. And perhaps it is because your characters are blindfolded. The people that you are rooting for are blindfolded, that you are the ones seeing what is around them. So there are so many scenes in here that just scared the crap out of me. What happened to her sister? People trying to gather stuff from the well. I think just water from the well. There's so many scenes in this book that I can still vividly see, and it just is so worth a read. Are you ready for a little intermission while I tell you about my haunted house experience, which I still can't believe I'm saying? This all started this year. Well, my realization of it started this year. I love ghost stories. I find them fascinating. I've never actually believed them, but I really like them. So I follow this woman on TikTok. I think her username is Vikingbarbecue. I'll link it below. She tells the story of her house being haunted. And this was the first time that I've actually believed someone. I've never really believed anybody before. But the details that she goes into, she interviews her dad at one point, who is an engineer, who like really did not believe in this, like would get mad at her when she would tell him about how she was being haunted in their home. And I just found it really fascinating. And one day I was on TikTok and she was on a live. And so I got on the live and I was asking questions, and she at one point was talking about how she would hear voices, hear someone saying her name. And I wrote to her, "Oh, but that's normal. Like I had that when I was a kid. I heard someone saying my name." And she said, "No, that's not normal." And I thought, what do you mean? This is just weird brain development for a child. How is that not normal? So I have lived 43 years of my life thinking me hearing someone saying my name as a child in a certain house was just my brain this entire time. So a little background. When I was 7, my family moved into this really beautiful home. Honestly, it was big. I had a nice big room. Across the street was a little park. And I just loved it. I really, really loved it. And yet I would hear probably once a month, I would hear someone whisper my name. They would just say, "April," like that. It wasn't like a slow April or anything like that. It was just April, like that, in my ear, like very close to my ear. And I would freak out and leave. What was I doing at this time? A lot of people asked me when I started telling people about my experience, were you asleep? No, I was never, ever, ever asleep when this happened. This happened when I was in my room, quiet. So either I was reading a book or I was coloring. I have a vivid memory of me coloring and hearing this. I can like see where I was and everything. And I would just leave the room, and I never told my parents because I thought it was I thought there was something wrong with my head. I don't know how to explain it, why I like brushed it aside, but I wouldn't go back to my bedroom for a while because it was scary. That said, I wasn't scared of my room. Now, this is kind of all that really happened to me in the house. I was absolutely terrified of the basement, but I think every kid is scared of the basement. I would just, when I went down, I did not feel alone while I was down there, but I think this is normal. Again, I think it's normal to feel that way when you're a kid. So I would like have to sing to myself while I was downstairs, and then I would always run up the stairs, and I always felt like I was being chased. But again, it's a basement. Aren't we all afraid of our basements? The only other thing that was creepy in this house that happened to my mom. When I moved out, my mom lived in that house. My mom and dad separated for a year. They're back together now, but they separated for a year. And my mom was living alone in this house. My dad lived like at his office. So she lived alone in this house. And it's a really big house for one person. This is like, you should not have this big a house if you're just one person. And she was understandably so planning on moving, and she started very slowly boxing things up and that kind of thing. One day she came home and she looked outside, and all of the chairs outside, outside the patio table were turned upside down. She believed at the time that it was like someone in the neighborhood either trying to scare her because she was alone in the house, or they were trying to do her a favor in case there was going to be rain. Now, I will say, maybe there was someone in the neighborhood trying to scare her. I can't imagine that happening. And also, I don't think anyone would be that nice or be able to see. It was extremely secluded, like that area. It was all surrounded by a row of shrubs, you know, like, what are those particular cedars? It was completely surrounded by cedars. No one could really see that area except like one house, and they'd have to look for it. So I don't think that's true at all. Maybe it was a ghost. I still don't know. Nobody knows. But that's the only other creepy thing that happened in that house. I feel like this experience for me has left me with more questions than answers. Like I very much would be open and happily open to hear that there is some sort of scientific explanation for why I heard someone whispering my name as a child in only one house. I'd love to know what happened. Is there something that happens between the ages of 7 and, like, this happened not as frequently when I was a teenager, but still happened in my teenage years. Is there something there? I'm open to that. But now I'm also open to, oh my goodness, maybe ghosts do exist. Genuinely, I'm open to this now. And also, does that mean that there's an afterlife? Because I don't know. So many more questions than answers this year, and that's fine. Let's get back into the books. Nestlings is next by Nat Cassidy. I read both of his books this year, Mary and Nestlings. Nestlings was by far my favorite. Nestlings follows a couple living in New York. They have hit the jackpot. They were thrown into a lottery for apartments a long time ago, and they hit the jackpot after they've had a child together, and their name has come up and they can move into this apartment when they're ready. And so where they live, they're not very happy. And this apartment complex is stunning. It is old and like coveted in New York, and they're gonna get there and be able to get in and not pay an insane amount for rent. So they say, yes, please. This has very much like Rosemary's Baby meets vampires. Just to set the scene. They move in with their child, and they soon find the neighbors very strange, extremely strange. And their baby has a bite mark on its neck. What is happening? I love a horror book that explores other issues. This really explores anti-Semitism. It also explores postpartum depression. Anna, our main character that we're following, had a really devastating birth. She had her baby, but in the process of having her child, she became paralyzed from the waist down. She lives in her wheelchair now. It explores ableism as well, which is fantastic and something I really, really enjoyed reading about. Not only is Anna kind of struggling becoming a mom, I mean, anyone would struggle becoming a mom just generally. It's a shift. But she also is, working through having a new body and having a body that works in a different way than it used to. And she's struggling with her marriage. One thing I loved about this was she's an audiobook narrator. And to get set up in her apartment, she needs certain equipment like walls and her mic and all of these things. And her husband is supposed to go and get those things for her, and he keeps forgetting. And what I loved about this is that it seemed like she was losing her voice because of this. Like he was taking away her voice. I just really liked the exploration of that. And just Nat Cassidy in and of himself, I just really appreciate. So far, all of his books are about women and times of life in women's lives that are challenging, and how society looks at them at those times in life. And I just really appreciate a male feminist author. I love him. Next up is The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. This follows a gay couple and their daughter Ren. They have rented a cabin in the woods for their summer vacation. Ren is hanging out outside. I think she's trying to catch like frogs or butterflies or something outside. And she sees people walking up the lane, the driveway. We're like remote here, okay? They're walking up the lane. They're wielding really strange objects that turn out to be strange weapons that they've made themselves. She rushes inside to her dad's, says what's happening, and they get to the door and say, "We're not going to hurt you. We just need your help to save the world." And there is a break-in. I love that this centers a gay couple, and it centers all of them, this beautiful family trying to survive this terrifying break-in. I will say there is body horror in here, and I'm not a huge fan of body horror, I gotta be honest. However, it works in this book for sure. I really thought it was good. It's like it's gruesome with the purpose, you know? I just don't like it when it's gruesome for like no reason. And I just love that throughout this book, you as the reader are wondering, are these people completely insane? Have they all lost their minds? Or is the world actually coming to an end and these people do need to help to save it? And there's, again, an open ending. I do enjoy an open ending when it works for a book, and it worked here so well. Next is The Little Stranger by Sara Waters. I adore Sara Waters' writing. This follows a doctor who is coming to Hendrix Hall to take care of a patient. A woman who works there has fainted and he needs to show up and help out. And soon after, he befriends the family, and he actually has known this house for a very long time. His mother used to be a maid at this house, but it has since fallen into disrepair. We are set just after World War I, where the upper class is falling and the middle class is rising, and you're seeing that middle class rising with the doctor, and you're seeing the upper class falling with just the state of this beautiful home. And as he gets to know the family, he soon realizes that people in this home are being haunted by a ghost. Now, I will say this is a slow burn. It is more eerie than actually terrifying. It's not going to like terrify you, but it's the eeriness of this. And I remember reading this quickly towards the end, because I could not read this book when Barry, my husband, was away on a work trip. I was like, I need to finish this before you leave. Even after he left, I still had to like lock my bedroom door when he was gone because I was scared, even though ghosts can walk through doors. But I was terrified. 2 more to go. We've got Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. This is the second book by him on this list, and my God, this was terrifying. I read it this year. This follows a little girl named Bella who sees a woman in her closet who she calls Other Mommy, and Other Mommy is known to talk to her like this. Like her whole head is either twisted, sometimes it's upside down, and slowly but surely Other Mommy comes over to Bella, makes her way out of the closet into Bella's bedside, where she asks Bella quietly and kindly, "Bella, will you let me into your heart?" It is truly terrifying. Again, this is a ghost story, but it's layered with the story of her parents. So her mommy, and she has a daddo as well. They love each other, but this marriage is absolutely on the rocks, absolutely crumbling. Bello is witnessing it. She's seeing this happening, but also her parents come in and talk to her, and while she's asleep, they think that she's asleep, and they talk to her. And I love that they have this exploration of motherhood in this book. We've got mommy, who's supposed to be all good, and other mommy who is, you know, a terrifying ghost who does scary things, but also still loves her. And then you see these characters, these I think, like, positions of thought surrounding motherhood, the all good mother and the terrifying mother, but there really isn't that. There's just people trying their best. And you explore motherhood in this book, and I just thought it was done so well. I will say that as the hauntings get worse, so too does the parents' relationship get worse, and it's just like this cumulative collision. And I'm sorry to say, you might be looking for some like butterflies and rainbows in this book. Like, everything comes together so well and is tied into a bow, and everything's great, and this book is gonna devastate you. It will devastate you. I'm surprised I didn't cry in this book. Okay, so I really recommend it, but just be prepared. Be prepared. Last but not least is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. This is a beautiful book, and it's the inspiration for so many ghost stories. That's one thing that I adore about this book, is it follows a governess who comes to take care of 2 children, and she arrives at this home and begins to see figures on the grounds who she believes intends harm to these children. The question is she seeing these ghosts, or are they in her head and she's actually a horrifying, terrifying governess to these children? Can you imagine if your governess thought that there were ghosts on the lawn and was trying to protect you, but there was nothing there? How scary that would be as a child? Yes. So this is just a little novella. It's like 100 pages. It's super short. But what I am really impressed by with this book is that it does still feel like a slow burn. It feels like a slow build up to a slow little crescendo. And how do you do that in 100 pages? That's mastery. I just don't know how he did it. And this is why it is a quintessential important book of its time. So yeah, The Turn of the Screw had to be on this list. And those are my favorite horror books today. I think I'm going to try to do this annually because this can change. Let me tell you, this list could change quickly. There are 2 books on this list that weren't there last year. So I love it. I also would love to know from you, what are your favorite horror books? And also, what do you think about, like, have you ever had an experience of haunting? And please, if you do think or have any notion of how this could be something where it was a child development brain thing, I'd actually really love to know, because I don't want to think that I've been haunted as a child. I would prefer not. I hope you're doing well. I will talk with you soon. Goodbye.